Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Game Nexus and episode 2 of the RPG Closet. Now, if you didn't tune into our last episode, the RPG Closet is an ongoing series that we're doing. Basically, it involves me going into my closet. I've acquired quite a lot of role-playing games over the years. Throughout all my moves, my games kind of get stored away, and I have kept them all. So these segments are basically going to be me digging into my closet and pulling out some of these really long-forgotten gems, most of which you're not going to be able to walk into the store and buy anymore. So these are very dated games, but the nice thing about role-playing games is that they never get old. The power of the internet, communities are keeping some of these older games alive, and so some of the games we cover on this show, you actually might find that there's very flourishing gaming communities that you can connect with. So this week we're going to be talking about a game that, again, I guess I could say all the games are near and dear to my heart. This one probably even more so than any other ones I'll talk about, and it's a game that's gone through a lot of evolution over the years, largely in part to the fact that the game actually has a license attached to it. So that game is the Marvel Superheroes role-playing game. This is the original book that was published back in 1984, and this was actually by a company called TSR. And if you're old enough like me, you're going to know that TSR was the originating company of Dungeons & Dragons before Wizards of the Coast took over the license, or took over or bought TSR. So Marvel Superheroes was, I believe it was their second or third game from TSR after Dungeons & Dragons. It could have been, I'm not too sure the exact timing. There's a few games that came out in that era, Gamma World, Star Frontiers, of course Dungeons & Dragons was the first. And then TSR acquired the Marvel license. This was a big deal for them because this was an actual recognizable name, a game that they didn't have to do as much marketing efforts to make people aware of it. Now, as a young gamer, when I saw this game, it just blew my mind. I mean, I was already an avid comic book collector at that time. Moving into high school, a friend of mine, plunked this down in front of me, and I just couldn't believe that there was a game already created that's going to let me roll up my own superhero character, or better yet, even play some of the iconic characters and just have stories told in that universe. Nonetheless, I definitely grabbed a copy of this game. A little bit of a story on that, though. The 1984 saw the release of the basic set, which is what I just showed you, and that was a very thin product. It came in a yellow box, some dice, like most of the starter sets did from TSR back in the day. Came with some character cards, a very minimal roster of heroes. They didn't really give you a lot of character data on all the Marvel characters. So you got the Fantastic Four, you got the Hulk, you got the Thing. Actually, no, you didn't get the Hulk, you got the Thing, and you got Spider-Man and Wolverine, I believe, as well. So very small lineup of characters. Mostly you made your own. Two thin books and a couple maps and a battle system to play with some of your heroic fights and stuff. Not a lot of meat, and they did make some modules that fleshed out the roster of stuff. So, gamers at that time would always look forward to the new modules that would come out so that they could expand their lineup of characters that they could play and inject into their stories. I missed out on that original set. I had a friend who had it, and I loved it. But when I ended up buying my own set, that had gone out of print, and I ended up getting in 1986, I believe I got the Advanced Edition. And that was where the doors just got blown off in this game. The Advanced Edition came with thicker rule books, more detail in the rules, huge roster of characters that were, common in the comics at that time. You had the X-Men, the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, a ton of villains. So, showing up at the game table with the Advanced Edition just made me an instant hero in my friend's eyes. So I just had a blast with the game. So I guess the big question is how does the game play? Very well. I don't think a game system like this exists to this day. TSR created a very colorful comic book style role-playing system that relied a lot on visual aid. They had what was called the universal game table. And this is just an unprecedented game mechanic. Games still used percentile and rolling dice, but dice were then used to consult this universal game table. The game table had, rules for anything you wanted to do in the game, whether it be hand-to-hand, dodging, lifting, any kind of combat action that you would take. The table just was this genius concept that somehow fit every kind of situation that you could think of in a comic book role-playing. not only that, but they made a point of actually injecting the Marvel style into their actual attribute system. So instead of just having a numerical score beside your strength score, for example, they would have flavorful terms like unearthly, monstrous, incredible, amazing. These are descriptive, narrative-oriented terms that got applied to your character. So when you look at a character sheet from Marvel, the Marvel RPG, it read like no other kind of character sheet. You know, you didn't have just a pure amount of numbers and such. You know, it was actually kind of interesting to read. So that was just one thing. I mean, the game mechanics was very fluid. You know, the other thing that was nice about it is that the system scaled. You know, when you're building a comic book role-playing system and you're just using pure numbers, it could be very easy to let those numbers get away from you. You're dealing with somebody from anime all the way to Galactus or the Beyonder, you know, and there's a huge range of power levels, and a lot of games even today struggle to maintain the balance between, you know, those kind of different characters. So this system was just genius again, creating, you know, the ability to have, you know, Thor interact with people like Captain America, and not only that, but, you know, using the comic books as reference, you know, make it so that you could literally, yeah, that would happen in the comics, likewise would also happen in the game. So whoever did all the core research in the game, just, you know, at every turn my players would try and prove the system wrong, you know, and create scenarios in the game and then reference the comic and say, well, in the comic this happened, and then we'd go back to the game and look and go, yeah, you know, I can see how the rules, yeah, that's how it would happen in the game. So kudos to them for doing that. So, like I said, the game's long out of print. You know, the company lost the license to the game just before actually Wizards of the Coast took over. In fact, they actually did make another Marvel superheroes role-playing game before that happened, and we'll cover that one actually in a different segment of the RPG Closet. You know, and then after that, the Marvel role-playing license just kind of traded hands, bounced around, and it never did recapture that glory of the original system. I mean, there's a few game systems I feel come close to it, but nothing quite unique like the one that was out in the 80s. So since all of that has transpired, there currently isn't a current game for Marvel superheroes. So if you are an RPG or looking to dive into the world of superhero role-playing, quite literally at the moment, I believe DC has a current license through the company that makes the Shadowrun RPG. But as far as Marvel goes, there's no current license. So we all know that we're being surrounded by Marvel movies, and you know, from time to time I get bit by the Marvel role-playing bug. I currently own 3 of the RPG systems that have come out from Marvel. I think there was only a total of 4 actually in existence. So out of those 4, I own 3. And you know, I constantly go back and forth between which system I'm going to use, and I do want to, you know, play out a Marvel superheroes role-playing campaign. My heart leans heavily towards the original core one that we're talking about today. One of the cool things about this system is that the online community. There is a massively large online community still playing the original system, as well as supporting it with new material, character stat blocks. You know, there's just a huge following for the game. So if you are actually wanting to get into Marvel Superheroes RPG, highly recommend that you do some looking around. You know, you probably can pick up the PDFs. I'm not sure you're going to be able to find you know, like a legitimate download for these via the Drive-Thru RPG. You're not going to be able to find them in store. So your best bet is just diving into the communities online, seeing if anybody's got copies of them that they're circulating, you know, and get your hands on it actually, because you're not going to be able to buy this from any source as far as I know. So if you have any questions, you know, and you want to know a little bit more about the game, definitely leave some comments, you know, down below. From time to time, I do post, you know, material of my own from campaigns in the past about Marvel, so you'll see some stat blocks and stuff that I do. And, you know, just follow us, hit subscribe. You know, I'm going to throw lots of updates as far as what I'm doing with the books, and maybe you'll see a campaign review or something like that for myself. So again, thanks for following us, and obviously thanks for taking the time to watch this video. Please hit subscribe, like our videos, share our videos. We've got more of the RPG Closet coming every week. For now, this is Dwayne signing off.